Hi, and welcome to session 4, our final session of Intro to SQL using MySQL Database, and offered to you by the Clifton Park Half Moon Library. My name is Scott Bartow, and let's get right into it since this is our final session of the intro class. Last session, we covered a couple of additional sorting of your data, elements of SQL. And then we also covered a couple of things to filter the data. And there's just a couple more things I want to cover on how to filter your data using SQL. And the first one is using the limit clause. All right, so the limit clause is used to select a statement to constrain the number of rows to return. And the limit clause uses two parameters. And those parameters are offset and the row count. So offset is where you want to start in where the row number that you want to start with. So if you want to start with the very first row, and now the very first row is not row number 1, it's actually row number 0. So if you wanted to start with the very first row, you would be starting with row number 0. So that is what the offset is. If I want to start with the 10th row, then I would put the parameter 10 in my limit clause. So let's see. I want to get rid of my code. If you look on my screen, so here's the limit clause. Limit. Now remember, this is all part of filtering your data, doing searches on your data, and returning a result set. Doing a query on your data. So the limit is you would have ampersand, and then whatever offset you want. I'll just type in the word offset, but this would be a number. And then comma. Let's see. So it's just a comma. You don't need these brackets, so I'm just going to take those out. So it's whatever offset, comma, and then if you have a row count. Now you only need one parameter when you're using the limit clause. You don't have to have offset and the limit and the row count. All right, so this would be the row count. All right, so this replaces your where clause when you're using limit. So an example would be limit, and then say I want an offset of, I want to start on the 10th record, comma, and I only want to return 3 records, and it'd be a semicolon. So that's an example of the limit clause. Now, why don't I give you, so the offset specifies the offset of the first row that you want to return, and the offset of the first row is 0, not 1. The default, when using the limit clause, the default will be the 0. So the first record, that's the default. So if you want to start with an offset of 0 or the first record, then you don't need any of that. You can just put, if you want a row count, you can just put how many rows you want returned. So it would look like this. It would be limit space number of rows you want to return, and then ending with a semicolon. So the row count specifies the maximum number of records you want to return. When you use a limit clause with one argument, MySQL will use this argument to determine the maximum number of rows to return from the first row of the result set. So just like I said, so in my example, if I don't include the offset, it'll default to an offset of 0 or the first record. Now, let me give you a nice example. Okay, so say we want to use MySQL, the limit clause to get the highest or lowest row. All right, so let's get rid of all this and start over. All right, so if we want to get the highest number of rows, all right, we're going to use, let's do a select statement. And we're going to select customer number, comma, customer name, and the credit limit. And we're going to take that from the customers table. Now remember, you have to preface it with your database name, classic models dot customers. Hit enter, and we're going to do order by. I'll put the SQL statements in capital letters. Order by, we're going to order by credit limit in descending order. And then finally, we're going to have the limit clause. And we're going to limit by 5. So we want to start with the first record. And we want to list the top 5 customers who have the highest credit limit. And since we're sorting by credit limit in descending order, that's going to have the first record have the highest amount of credit, and the next so the top 5 records will have customers with the highest number of credit. So this is how we would use the limit clause. So if I run it, all right, it returns 5 records. If you look at the middle of my screen, the result grid returns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records only. And you can see the credit limit is sorted in descending order. So the first record, Euro plus shopping channel, has $227,600 in credit. And then the next record is $210,500, and the next one is $141,300. So they're sorted in order, and it returned a row count of only 5. So that's how you would get the highest 5 rows. Now let's take a look at another example. So to get the lowest 5 customers with the lowest credit, we would want our limit to still only be the 5 rows, right? Because we want 5 of the lowest credit customers. And all you would have to do is change your order by. So you're still ordering it by credit limit. And instead of having it descending, just have it ascending. Which, remember, ascending is the default. So you don't have to have ASC in there. And if I run this, it should give me the 5 customers with the lowest credit limit, which all 5 of these have 0 credit. So they're the lowest in our database. I'm just curious, in our database, I wonder how many people have 0 credit. So why don't I up the row count from 5 to 10, see what happens. Nope, they all have 0, so I'm going to make it real fast. I'll make it 20. Nope, they all have 0. How about 50? Let's see. Quite a few of the customers in the customer database have 0. So how can we get the lowest 5 customers, the 5 customers with the lowest credit that don't have a credit of 0? So if you look at my result set, this the customer Boards and Toys Company is the first one that has a credit that's not 0. That's the lowest, which is it's $11,000. All right, so the way to do that is, let's see, limit that. All right, let's do the where clause. Let's try this. So we add the where clause where credit limit is not equal to, remember the comparative operator of exclamation point equal sign. The other way to do not equal to is less than and greater than. But I prefer the exclamation point equal sign, so I'm going to use that one. So where the credit limit is not equal to 0. All right, and it doesn't seem like it allows me to do a where clause with a limit. Order by, oh, maybe I have to do it order by down below. Oh yeah, let's do this. Oops. Let's move our where clause. Let's put it after from where credit limit is exclamation point equal not equal to 0. Yeah, so the order of your statements in your SQL, you start with select, and then you have the table it's from, and then you can add a where clause, and then you sort, and then the limit clause has to go underneath the sort. All right, so now I should have, if you look at my my result grid, what should be returned is Boards and Toys of $11,000, then Altier Graphics 21,000, Automotive Classics 23,000. All right, so let's see what happens. So I'm going to run this query, and that's what we have. Oh, I set my limit to 50 instead of going back to 5. So I'll change the limit to 5. This should be the 5 lowest credit customers in our database. And they are. So if you look at the result grid now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records returned. So I have a limit of 5. I've got Boards and Toys first, and then Altier Graphics, then Automotive, then Royal Bells, and Fraud something. All right. So let's see, is there any other things I want to show you with the limit? Oh yeah, there's a couple more things. Let's see. So one more thing with the limit clause. Say you wanted to get the second highest credit customer, all right? The way to do that is I can get rid of the where clause, right? So we're going for the second highest credit customer. All right, so we go back to when we were trying to get the top 5 highest customers. Now remember, we have to order by credit limit in descending order, so we have to include the DESC command. All right, so I'm going to run this now. And it returns the top 5 highest credit customers. All right, so now if my goal is to get the second highest customer, that would be, if you look at the result grid in the middle of the screen, you can see it's mini gifts distributors for a credit limit of 210,500. So the way to do this using the limit clause is by using the nth, the nth highest or lowest value. So the way to do that is we would change our limits clause. Now remember, the limit clause has 2 parameters, one being the offset, what row do you want to start with, and the other one being the row count. All right, so we want a single record, and we want to start on the second record. Now remember, the first record has a value of 0. The second record would then have a value of 1. The third record would be 2. So since we want the second record, that would be a position of 1. And give it a comma, and then the row count, we only want that second record, so I'll do 1. And then a semicolon to end our SQL statement. Right, I'm going to run this, and it comes up with mini gifts distributors. Now, say we wanted the 4th and 5th highest customer. So to start at the 4th row, that would be a position of 0, 1, 2, 3. So I would put a 3 for the offset, and I want a row count of the 4th and 5th record. So I want a row count of 2. All right, I'll run that. And it brings up Muscle Machine and AV Stores. So remember those names. I would go back to just the top 5. Muscle Machines and AV Stores. All right. And when I run for the top 5, the 4th and 5th are Muscle Machine and AV Stores. So we know our SQL was working. All right, so that's it for the limit clause when you're filtering your data. Now let's move on to the select distinct clause, which is used a decent amount. Let's see. So in your select clause, we can add a distinct. All right, so when you're querying data from a table, you may get duplicate rows. In order to remove those duplicate rows, you can use the distinct clause in your select statement. All right, so where it would go would be up here. So I'm going to get rid of the limit clause. And semicolon here. So up in my select statement, if I wanted to return distinct or unique records, I would put the distinct clause in. Select distinct. All right. So for the examples, we're going to be using the employee table. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff. All right, so I've got select distinct. And now I'm going to do select distinct by last name. You know how like a very common name, a last name is Smith or Jones. And so say you only wanted distinct records to be returned, not everybody with the last name of Smith. So we're going to call this from our employees table. And we're going to do an order by last name. Semicolon to end my SQL statement. Now, when I run this, it's only going to return distinct last name records in my employees table from my employees table. So when I run it, oh, we got a little error. All right, so why don't I'll highlight this, run it down here. Right, so first I'm going to run without the distinct clause. And remember, just because I have two statements on my screen, if I hit the lightning bolt, it wouldn't know what to do. It would try and run both and it would get confused. But if I highlight the top SQL statement and run it, once I click the lightning bolt, it will run what's highlighted. All right. Oh, another error. I know what it is. I didn't put the database before the table name. So I have classic models database. Oops. Dot employees. All right. Now I'll run this. And if you look at the result grid in the middle of the screen, you can see the first two last names are both Bonder. So we have a couple of Bonders, we have a couple of Forellis. What else? Pattersons. We had 3 Pattersons, and that's it. So there are three sets of duplicates. So now what we want to do is use the distinct clause to filter out those people. So if we do what I've got down in my second SQL statement, I have to add the database name, oops, before the table name, classic models employees. Good. Okay. So I've got select distinct last name from the classic models employees table, and I'm sorting by an ascending order last name. All right. So I'll highlight it and run the SQL here. Now you see the first record in the result grid is Bonder, but there's only a single Bonder record. And if we go down, there's only a single Forelli record, and there's only a single Patterson record. So that's how the distinct clause in your select statement works. Now, there's other ways to use it. So if a column has null values, and you use a distinct clause for that column, then MySQL keeps only one null. It will only return one record that has a value of null. Because distinct treats all null values as the same value, right? Just like it treats with the distinct clause in your select statement, it treated the last name Bonder as the same value, and Forelli and Patterson. All right, so let's give it a try. Now, when we use, let's say, So if we go to, now if we use the customers table, so we're going to be selecting state from the customers table. So I'm modifying my SQL up above, customers, and we're going to order by state. All right, so if I run this, select the state column from the customers table, and I order by state in ascending order, right? So the first state would be Alabama, Alaska, one of the states that starts with an A. So I'll run this. Now in the customers table, a lot of the records have a null value for the state field, right? You can see plenty of them have null. And a lot of them have like BC, which is British Columbia, I think. Then California, CA, and then Cork in Ireland, and then CT, Connecticut. All right. So if we were to do select the states now, so I'm going to copy my SQL up above, and I will place it here. But I'm going to add the distinct clause. Distinct. Select the distinct states from the customers table and order it by state. So I'll highlight this and run it, hitting the lightning bolt. And now, if you're reading the result grid, I have one record with a null value for the state. I have, I think there was 2 BC records. Now there's one. There was a whole bunch of California records. Now there's one. So everything should just be unique. Every state should be unique. Tokyo is a state. Victoria. All right. So that's how you can use. That's how null values are handled when you're using the distinct clause. All right. Select the state. Now you can use the distinct clause with more than one column. In this case, MySQL uses the combination of values in these columns to determine the uniqueness of the row in the result set. All right, for example, to get a unique combination of city and state from the customers table, we're going to use the following query, all right? So first, I will do up above in my select statement, I'm going to do select city, comma, state from the customers table, and I'm going to order by state, comma, city. All right, comma, city, semicolon. And let's see what we get. And I'm going to select first the state and then the city, since I'm ordering that way. And so I highlight my code, hit the lightning bolt, it runs. And if you look at the result set, it's got a null value for state and then the city option. Null value for state and then the city Amsterdam. All right. So let's get through the nulls. All right. How about California? All right. So for the state, we have California, and we're sorting by state first in our order by. And then the city is ordered by ascending order within the state. So we have the first city in California is Brisbane, and then we have Burbank, then Burlington, and then Glendale, then LA, Pasadena, San Diego, San Francisco. These are all alphabetized within the state. Now, if you look at just below San Diego, we have two records that are have a state of California and also have a city of San Francisco, right? I'm going to expand this so you can see San Francisco. So I have duplicate records, really. And so now how can I add, why don't we, how can I add, first of all, why don't we get rid of the no value states? And the way to do that is just like what we did last time. So we go where, capitalize them, where state, oops, and here, where state is not equal to estimation equals. So actually with this, when you're trying to filter out no values of something, you would say is not no. All right, so that's how you'd handle a no value in this case. If I wanted all the states that had a no value, I would just say is no. I would get rid of this, and that would only display that would filter out states that only have a no value. But I don't want the no value states, so I'll just go here. All right. Now remember, we're taking a look at the state of California with the city of San Francisco. So when I hit a lightning bolt, California, let's see. Oh, that's my problem. California, I need comma. In my select clause, I was only listing out by state. So so I have to select also city. And then I want to order by state and then city also. All right. Now I'll run this. All right, so if you look at California, we have Brisbane, Burbank, Burlington, we get down to San Francisco. So we have San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose. So it only lists in your query the records that are distinct. So that's how you use the distinct clause when you have multiple columns that you're working with. In this case, we were working with state and city. Okay. Now, let me show you one last thing with this select distinct, and that deals with using the distinct when you're using aggregate functions. All right. So one aggregate function that I haven't covered yet that I use quite often. So an aggregate function is it's used in the select statement. So say I want to use the aggregate function called count. So I want to count of the number of records. I don't want to select. In my select statement, I would say count say state. All right, and I'm only going to be looking at state in this case from the customers table, and I'll order by state. Get rid of the city, ordering by city. All right, so so the aggregate function is called count, and I'm passing into that function the parameter state. So it's going to give me, it's going to return not a list of the states in the customer table, but it's going to return a number of records with state. So let's say. All right, count state. It says 49 records, right? So let's say up above, I'm going to do a select. Actually, I'm just going to copy this stuff. So to display all the records within a table, all you have to do is say select. And we talked about this before earlier. We talked about select asterisk. Oops, where is the asterisk? There it is. Select asterisk from the customers table. All right, so if I run this, it should be 49 records. Customers. Apply revert snippets. 49 records. All right. So when we ran this, we got a count of state of 49, right? Now, when you're using distinct, the distinct clause with the aggregate function of count, let's see. So you can use the distinct clause to remove duplicate rows before the count, before the aggregate function is applied to the result set. So by saying, let's say, by copying this, I'll put it down here. The way you would do it is you would say count, which is a function, parentheses, and then you put the parameter inside the parentheses. But what we're going to do here is we're going to say distinct space, and then the column that you want to select, which is, in this case, is going to be state. So let's see. So why don't we add a where clause to only look for customers that are in the United States? Right, that'll eliminate records that that are overseas or from other countries. Doesn't have to be just overseas. So where the country field equals, and the value for USA is single quote USA 2. So USA single quote. All right. Doesn't like something. That's a model state. Count distinct state from customers where country equals USA. For some reason it doesn't like it. Order by state. Oh, that's why. You can't have an order by. Maybe. Let's say. Doesn't like something. From, it says, you have an error. Hold on. All right, so if you look down at the last SQL statement right here that I have highlighted. So I've got select, I've got the aggregate function count, and inside for the parameter, I've got, instead of just state like above, I'm doing a distinct state from the customers table where country equals USA. So I'm only going to have states within the USA. And I'm going to order by, I want the result set to be ordered by state. All right. Actually, that, yeah, the order by, forget the order by. Because I'm doing a count. All right. So the function count really does turn out to be handy. So if I do a count, so it gives me 8 unique states within the United States in my customer table. All right, so how we can check this out is, and we just do this. I'll do a copy of this code. I'll come down here, lines. I'll get rid of the, I'm going to do a count by state in the United States. All right, so we have 8 distinct ones. But now if I do it without using the distinct clause, I get a count of 36. So there's 36 records that are part of the, have a country of USA and have various states, and those states include the no values that some of the records have for the state column. All right. So that's how you would use the distinct clause when you're using like a aggregate function. And so remember that the aggregate function count is comes in very handy when you include that in your select statement. All right. So if you just want a record count to be returned in your query, count is a great function to use. All right, so let's move on to table joins. All right, so to talk about MySQL join clauses. All right, so a relational database consists of multiple related tables linked together using common columns, which are known as foreign key columns. All right. Because of this, data in each table individually gives an incomplete picture of the business. So, for example, in our sample database, we have 2 tables that are linked together by a similar column. And those tables are the orders table and the order details table, which are linked together by a common column called order number. They both have order number in them, so they can be linked together and joined to get a better picture of our orders information. So this is why we use a join. A join is a method of linking data between one self-join or more tables, because based on values of the common column between the tables. So in the example I just gave, the common column is order number, which is common between the orders table and the order details table. So the first type, there's 4 types of joins in SQL. There's inner join, the left join, the right join, and a cross join. All right, the first one we're going to be talking about is the inner join. To join tables, you use one of the four types of joins, and the join clause is used in the select statement. And the select statement appeared after the from clause. So let's see. Why don't we try and do an inner join on the two tables that we have? So it'll be based on a condition which is known as the join predicate. So the inner join clause compares each row from the first table with every row from the second table. If values in both rows cause the join condition evaluates to true, the inner join clause creates a new row whose column contains all columns of the two rows from both tables and includes this new row in the final result set. In other words, the inner join clause includes only rows whose values match. All right, so let's do an example. Okay, so first I'm going to do a select. Select SELECT, and I'm going to select. Let's see. What do we have for order? I have order details and I have orders. Why don't we just do product code maybe? Why don't we do product code? Product code from the order details table. And I'm going to call, I'm going to give, I don't know if you remember from last session, we talked about column aliases and table aliases. And so we're going to be using those today. So I'm going to be doing, so product code is a column that is in the order details table. And I'm going to use the alias OD dot for the order details table. And then why don't we do orders table? Orders, I'm just going to do how about ORD dot. And this one, I'm going to do order number, comma, ORD dot status from the orders table, comma, and then from the order details table, I'll do product code. So we'll do those three columns, hit enter, and now from classic models dot orders and this one's going to be ORD, comma, and then the other table is going to be classic models dot order details, and that one is going to be an OD. The alias name for that table will be OD. Hit enter. All right. Let's see. Join. So it's inner space join. That is the the clause. And what we want is ORD status, ORD product code. So we have inner join and it is. Oh, so we'll call it All right, I think I have it figured out. Okay, so what I've added is up in the select statement, I've got the order details, order number, order details status, the orders table, order number. The orders ORD is for the alias for orders table. So I've got ORD status, and then I've got the OD is the alias for the orders details table, and I've got the order number, and I've got the order details product code. All right, and then when doing an inner join, in the from statement, you list the first table. In this case, it's orders, and I give it an alias of ORD. Then you do the inner join statement, and you give it. Then you name the second table, which in this case is order details, and I give it an alias of OD. And then in the line below, you do on, all right? So we're joining these two tables based on a similar column value, and that column is going to be the order number. So I'm going to use the alias of ORD dot order number equals the OD, order details tables, order number. And that's it. And then, of course, finish it with a semicolon. All right, so we're taking the first table of orders, and we're doing an inner join with the second table of order details. And we're doing the join based on those two tables having an order number in common, an order number equal to each other. All right, so let's see what happens. Click on that, and all right, we're good. So you can see in the result grid, we've got the 4 columns that we've selected, right? So we've got the order number from the orders table, then the status from the orders table, then the order number from the order details table, and the product code from the order details table. All right, so these have those in common. And an order number and order number matching here. And let's see, let's scroll down. So you can see how the inner join, how it joins two tables with a common column. All right. So let's see if we can get to when you have for the inner join, when you have two columns that are the same on both tables, and you're using the equal clause, which we're doing right here, instead of saying on such and such, like order number equals order number, what you can do is right in the inner join, right after you name the second table, we can get the on. And so you should have just inner join, and then you name the second table, classic models.order details, give it an alias of OD in this case, and then space, and then do the clause using, and do a parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis we're going to name the common column. So in this case, it's the common column is order number. All right, so I'll just put in order number. And then end with parenthesis, and then do a semicolon. Now I see right after using, I have a first parenthesis had a red mark around it. Now it doesn't. All right, so let's see if this works. This should come up with the same result set as what I had before when I wasn't using, I was doing the on clause. And yep, it looks like it's pretty much the same. Yeah. So you're joining the two tables together with a common column. Let's see, anything else? And that's going to be it for now. I am offering another 4-session advanced SQL class for next month. So please go out to the Clifton Park Halfman Library and register. I'm not sure, I believe it's out there already for you to be able to register for. Please also go and accept the invitation to Google Classroom. A bunch of students have registered with the library, but they haven't accepted my Google Classroom invitation, which gives you access to the exercises after each session, and also access to contact me with any questions or problems that you're running into. Thanks very much for joining me these past 4 sessions in the class Intro to SQL using MySQL Database, and once again offered generously by the Clifton Park Half Moon Library, and I hope to have you in future classes, hopefully next month, and we will continue on with learning all about SQL and the MySQL database. Thanks very much for joining me.